Greetings Earthlings and welcome back to Podcastage. Today I am back with a review of the Rode Lavalier IIs. Full disclosure, this is a loaner from Rode, but I've also bought a couple of them when I bought the Wireless Pro system. They cost about $100. All of my recording settings will be listed in the doobly-doo as well as the description. And now let's talk about what comes in the box. First, you get a storage case. You'll of course get the microphone, a microphone clip, a foam windscreen, a dead cat, a set of 4 ID rings, and a tiny bit of documentation. Then as far as the build quality, I think this feels pretty good. It has an all plastic and rubber body. There are tension reliefs on both ends of the cable. The cable actually comes with a warning because it includes Kevlar, which is insanely strong. It's a 4-foot, approximately 1.2 meter cable, which terminates into a 3.5 millimeter TRS plug. And whether you care or not, this microphone is made in Australia. I'm not going to read them to you, but up on screen I have all of the specs, and I'll also have them listed in the description down below. Now I'm spinning around the Lav 2 to 90 degrees. Here is the side of it. There shouldn't be any change as we go around to the rear, continuing around to the second side, and then rotating and ending at the front. Let's go ahead and also talk into the top of it. This is the top. This is the bottom of the Lav, and then back direct on. Now let's see if I can hit this thing with a plosive. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide pizza pronto. Please provide pizza pronto. Or if I just breathe out of my mouth directly down, I'm sure I could hit it. Now let's hear the microphone in a couple of different common lav mic positions. So right now the microphone is in the center of my chest, about 7 to 9 inches below my mouth, and here's how it sounds in this spot. Now I have the microphone clipped to the collar of my shirt directly below my chin. This is one of the most common positions that I see being used for lav mics. It's going to be a bit darker sounding, but here's how it sounds in this position. Now I have the microphone clipped to the collar of my button-down shirt slightly off-center to hopefully avoid a little bit of that chin shadow and bring back a little bit of the top end, but here is how it sounds in this position. Now I have the Lav 2 clipped to the bill of my cap so it has a direct line of sight to my mouth. This should add a bit more top-end information into the recording and add a bit more clarity, and here's how it sounds in this position. And finally, we have what I call the tick-tock position, which is where I am hand-holding the Lav 2 a couple inches in front of my mouth. This will give us the brightest sound, but this is not a proper use for a lav mic, but it is so common that I have to include it. And that concludes the position tests for this video. Very cool. Now I'm typing on a keyboard with Gatoron blue switches to see how much of the keyboard it picks up. And now I am typing on the SAD W and spacebar keys for the gamers. Now here's how the Lav 2 sounds about 7 inches below my chin in a relatively well-treated room. And now here's how the Lav 2 sounds in the exact same position but in a completely untreated room. Next, I want to hear if the provided foam windscreen or dead cat impact the tone of the recording. So right now the microphone's 7 inches below my mouth with nothing on it, and here's how it sounds. Now here is how the Lav 2 sounds with the provided foam windscreen installed. And now here is how the Lav 2 sounds with the big fat dead cat installed on it. And here's another sample of the microphone 7 inches below my mouth with nothing on it. And here's another sample of the Lav 2 with the provided foam windscreen installed. And again, here is how the Lav 2 sounds with the big fat dead cat installed to stop any kind of wind from hitting it. Now I want to demo how a lav mic might actually improve the sound of your videos. So what you're hearing right now are the internal mics on the Canon 90D. My camera is set up 6 feet away, so you are getting a bunch of room noise, a bunch of reverb. Sounds terrible. Now I have the Lav 2 clipped to my chest, and that is what you're hearing. I am running the microphone directly into the camera using a 3.5mm extension cable. You should hear a lot more of a direct sound, a lot less reverb, and a lot less background noise. That is the Lav 2. And here's another sample of the internal microphones on the Canon 90D. And for good measure, here is another sample of the Lav 2 compared to the internal microphones on the Canon 90D. Now let's hear the Lav 2 in a couple of different environments. So right now I'm away from my desk, I'm away from the walls in a fairly well-treated studio. I have the Lav about 7 inches below my mouth in the center of my chest, and here is how it sounds. I'll go ahead and rotate around a little bit. There you go. This is the studio sound. Now it sounds terrible because I'm recording in my kitchen, which has nothing on the floors, nothing on the walls. It is incredibly reverberant. This is an absolute worst case scenario, but I have to include it so you know how it sounds in this kind of situation. And now here is how the Lav 2 sounds outdoors, and hopefully this reduces a little bit of the reflections, although now it's introducing a bunch of ambient noise like traffic and wind. Not good. But here is how it sounds outdoors. Listening back to the sample recordings of the Lavalier II, I found that it sounded a little bit overpowering in the low end, so I wanted to see how this thing handles a high pass filter. Right now, I do not have any EQ on, but I have this mic running through the Rode AI1. Now I have engaged the 75 Hz high pass filter on this interface. This is a 75 Hz high pass filter. And now I have engaged the 150 Hz high pass filter. This is the 150 Hz high pass filter. Did this help clean it up in the low end at all, or did it just make it sound weak? Now I have turned off the high pass filters, and this is the raw sound of the Lav 2, couple inches below my mouth. Now let's hear how the Lav 2 sounds running through a bunch of different inputs. Currently it's 9 inches below my mouth, and I'm running the microphone directly into the Canon 90D with my gain set at about 30%, and here is how this sounds. Now I have the Lav 2 running into a TRRS splitter, which is then running into a 3.5 to USB-C adapter into the iPhone 15. I am recording the microphone into the Rode Reporter app at 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. My input level is set at about 40-ish%, and here's how it sounds in this situation. Now I have the Lav 2 running into a TRRS splitter, which is then plugged directly into the input-output on a 2019 MacBook Pro. I'm recording directly into Audio Hijack at 32-bit, 48 kilohertz, and my input level is set at 47%. And here's how it sounds in this situation. Now I have the Lavalier II running directly into the mic input of a Sabrent USB sound card. I'm recording 16-bit, 48 kilohertz. Input level is set at 84%. And here's how it sounds running this mic into an extremely affordable audio input device. And finally, I have the Lavalier II running into the Rode AI Micro, which is a 3.5mm audio interface. I'm recording 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. Input level is set at 100%. The high pass filter is disengaged, and here's how it sounds using this setup. Now I have the Lavalier II running directly into the Zoom H1E, recording 32-bit floating point, 48 kilohertz. This device doesn't have any kind of gain setting, but check the lower third, and here is how it sounds running into this device. Next, I'm on the Lavalier II running into the Rode VXLR Pro, which converts 3.5mm to XLR and converts 48 volts to plug-in power. That is connected to the Focusrite 18i20 2nd Gen. Input gain is set at 3 o'clock, recording 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, and here's how it sounds on this setup. Now let's do a quick spoken word comparison between the Lavalier II and a bunch of other microphones. Starting on the Lavalier II, it is about 7 to 8 inches below my mouth in the center of my chest, running through the Rode VXLR Pro into the 18i20 2nd Gen, gain set at 3 o'clock, and here's how it sounds. First up, we have the Shure MVL, which is in the exact same position. It's running through a TRRS to TRS adapter. Gain is still set at 3 o'clock on the 18i20. That's enough talking. Let's move on with the comparisons. Back on the Rode Lavalier II, nothing has changed. Here's how it sounds. Let's move on. Next, I'm on the Rode Lavalier Go, which is in the exact same position, still running through the VXLR Pro and gain still at 3 o'clock. This is Rode's older Lav. This goes for about $80, so $20 less than the Lavalier II. And that is enough talking on this. Let's move on. Here's another palette cleanser on the Rode Lavalier II. Everything remained consistent. Let's go to the next microphone. Now I'm on the Sennheiser ME2, which is in the same position, still running through the VXLR Pro and gain still at 3 o'clock. This mic costs about $130, and here is how it sounds compared to the Lav 2. Let's go back and do a handful more. Here's the Lavalier II again, just to clear out your ear canals. That's enough talking. Let's go to the next one. Now we've jumped up in price quite a bit. I am on the Countryman B6, which is more of a professional tier microphone. It's in the same position. My gain is still set at 3 o'clock. This mic costs somewhere between $300 and $400. And here is how this super teeny tiny Lav sounds compared to the much bigger, much more affordable Lavalier II. Hey, here's a palette cleanser on the Rode Lavalier II, and that is enough to palette your cleanse, and let's go to the next one. Next, I'm on the Sanken Cos 11D in the same position, still running through the VXLR Pro, gain still at 3 o'clock. I'm just saying the same thing so I have something to say. This mic costs about $300 to $400, somewhere in there. This is more of a professional tier microphone, but here is how it sounds compared to the Lavalier II. Here is your penultimate palette cleanser on the Lav 2. Nothing has changed. Let's go to the next mic. Now I'm on the Shure TL48, which is one of Shure's higher end Lav mics. It's in the exact same position, but now I'm running into Shure's TA4F to XLR adapter. Gain is still set at 3 o'clock. 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, and here is, this costs about $400 to $450, and here's how it sounds compared to the Lav 2. And here is your final palette cleanser on the Rode Lavalier II. You know what the last mic is going to be, so let's go to it right now. I am on the Neumann, hello Neumann, U87 AI. The microphone is in the exact same position on the omnidirectional pattern. Gain on the 18i20 is set at about 12 o'clock. This is ridiculous. So here is the U87 back on the cardioid polar pattern, 6 inches in front of my mouth. This, of course, is not a fair comparison. This is a control. This mic costs $3,700. Those are all the comparisons I have for you. Let's move on with the video. Alright, I have no idea what to say about this thing other than the fact that it seems to be very utilitarian and very functional. And first up, as far as pros, the microphone has a really nice build quality. It also comes with a great set of accessories, which makes this really useful right out of the box. It's also low profile because it has that flat design, and the cable is also flat. And although 27 dBA self-noise may sound insane for us studio folk who focus on large diaphragm condensers, for a small lav mic, that's pretty respectable, and it outdoes its direct competition like the Shure MVL and the Sennheiser ME2. And then as far as cons, I found that in the standard positions for lav mics, this seemed to come across a bit low detail, and I believe that's because the opening for the capsule is on the front, so when it's on your chest or on your throat, the microphone isn't pointed up, it's pointed out. If you're able to get creative with the placement, like placing it on a lapel that's a little bit floppy, and you're able to get the opening to point at your mouth, you get a lot more detail and it sounds so much better. And this is more of an FYI than a con, because this is something that holds true for pretty much every single omnidirectional lav mic or omnidirectional microphone in general, but this thing is insanely unforgiving in terms of background noise rejection and reverb rejection. So if you're buying this expecting it to remove all of that, it's not going to do that. It is going to pick all of that up in your recording. And now, what are my overall thoughts and opinions about the Lavalier II? As far as the overall sound, I would say that the bass and low mids can be a bit overpowering, and I found myself wanting to throw on a high pass filter almost all the time. For this outro, I have a 75 Hz high-pass filter on. The mids are nice and neutral. And then according to the frequency response graph, it has a bump in the treble and air, but in standard positions, I don't really hear that. I hear this coming across much more low detail than the competition, like the Lavalier Go even, the Sennheiser ME2 or the MVL, and then especially compared to the Lavs that are 3x the price. But if you can get the microphone in a position where the opening is pointed more directly at your mouth, I found that you get a lot more top-end information and it just comes to life and sounds so much better, which is why I have this on the lapel of my shirt, which is kind of floppy, so it's away from my body, pointed at my mouth. So that is how I think it sounds. It can sound low detail, but if you can get a good placement, I think it sounds pretty darn good. And to wrap up, would I recommend the Lavalier II? Kind of. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but when I was using this in the standard positions, like directly between my moobs, 7 inches below my mouth, on the collar of my shirt, I wasn't in love with the sound of it. I thought it sounded too low detail, and in those positions, I preferred the competition. I would be reaching for the Lavalier Go, the Sennheiser ME2, or any of the higher end Lavs. But if you're able to get this in a good position, I think this sounds pretty darn good. The build quality is great. The accessories are great. So if you're able to get a good position with your microphone, and if you like the sound of it, I say go for it, because for $100, I think this is a pretty appealing package.